get to hang today.
Me too. I'm so glad you asked.
I know. What have you been up to today?
This
Start from
week,
when you woke up. What was your
well,
bevy of choice this morning?
well, matcha always,
Mm,
but this week has been crazy. On
mm.
Monday, we had Creative Collective, which is like a creative event for volunteers. On Tuesday, we had Crosspoint College. And then last night, we had Mega Wednesday, like the biggest student event we've done. And so I rolled in this morning like, I'm here, I'm alive.
It's a messy bun day.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel that.
But today's been good. I've just been in such a good mood all week. So I told Finn, I was like, nothing's gonna break my spirit this week. I don't know, I'm just so happy this week. So it's been good, busy, but really good. And I'm off. I have all of next week off work. Yeah,
What are
well,
you going
kind
to
of.
do?
I'm actually flying down to Florida, and Rachel and I'm like going down there to help her co-art direct a
For
film
those that don't know
her
Rachel, who's
church is
Rachel?
doing. Rachel, she's best. Rachel is my previous boss. She used to be the art director at Crosspoint, which is the role I'm currently in. So
Mm.
she left to be a creative director at a new church down in Florida. And so I'm going out there to like help her produce their Christmas film, which is just cool for so many reasons. I'm so
So
excited.
fun.
And I'm like, Florida for a week? Sign me up.
For
I can't
real,
wait.
though.
I know.
Yes, I'll come. Fine.
I'm like, twist my arm. Twist
Fine.
my arm.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited, first off, that we get to chit chat, and the role that you have at Crosspoint is not only an essential one, but a really beautiful one. So I don't want to go into what it is because I want to leave that as like a cliffhanger, but I kind of want to just, for those that are listening and interested, I want to just kind of start from the very beginning about who
Yeah.
you are. Like, this is Ashley Palmer. For those that don't know, we didn't even introduce you, but just sort of chit chat about your life and where it started and where it's at. And we could just go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about so many different things about like just my life in general. Like my life could be a movie, honestly. Maybe one day it will be. I don't know. That could be cool. Um, but yeah, I guess like thinking about my life and how where I started and where I am now, I think that as a child, I was always like the free spirit. Like I have a twin sister and she's very type A and I'm the complete opposite of her. Like I remember growing up, I think it was like our 8th or 9th birthday, I had asked for like art supplies and new clothes and like these sequins boots. And my twin sister asked for office supplies, like post-it notes. I'm not kidding, like post-it notes in a filing cabinet. And it's so funny because it's like, even though we were so young, we've just completely grown into what, those first signs of like business and art kind of. So yeah, I've always been just kind of intrigued with like the beauty of life, honestly. And I didn't really know why either. I didn't become a Christian until I was 17. And when I did, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder. Like this gives context to everything of, why I'm intrigued and like obsessed with like the colors in a wave and the way the clouds move in the sky, and like everything felt like it had a purpose, but I had nothing that I could point to explain why. And so when
Mm-hmm.
I met Jesus, I was like, oh my gosh, duh. And so I remember when I was probably 17 or 18, like a baby Christian, and I was at a house church Bible study thing. I was in high school at the time, but I used to tag along to like the college one with the older kids because
Of course.
I liked like the worship, and I was like, I'll hang with them, hear what they talk about. I remember somebody asked me, they were like, what's your dream job? If you could do anything with your life, what would you want to do? And I was still I'd been going to church for maybe like a year. So I didn't even know creative teams existed. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
creativity was something that churches used or valued or was a part of conversation at all. And so I remember I told this person, I said, well, I met Jesus and I'm so in love with him. I want to do something with that in my life, but I also love painting and I love being creative and expressing beauty in different ways. And I was like, so I don't really know, because I don't know how those two things, I didn't see any way that they like combined together in a professional setting.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I sat in that like, I don't really know for a long time, honestly, throughout like all of college too. It was my last semester of college, and I had taken a lot of like painting classes and drawing classes. And I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I just feel like I have to keep following in this direction because I was like, maybe I'll be like a starving artist in my parents' basement. Who knows? But at least
It'll
I'll
be
be happy.
great.
At least I'll be happy. And so I remember my senior year of college. Um, I had applied to like 80 positions and it was like, nope, nope, nope. And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I saw at the time it was a graphic design role here at Crosspoint. And I was like, whatever. It was like LinkedIn, easy apply. You don't have to fill anything out. You just submit it. And so I was like, I've been to Crosspoint once or twice at the time. And I was like, sure, super unqualified to be a graphic designer. Like I had the eye for
I'm
things.
going to crush this.
I knew nothing. And so, anyways, that whole hiring process was really cool too. I basically had like a week of interviews back to back to back, like 4 or 5 days in a row. And I got that job offer the same day I graduated.
Mm.
And then I spent the next month learning Photoshop and trying to learn Illustrator because I was like, I know nothing. And so I remember sitting in the one of my final interviews for that role and having a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is that desire for ministry and that desire to create and to be, working in art in some capacity combining. I was like, this does exist. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful to like my little self who followed that kind of like tug because
Mm.
I really didn't know what it would end up as. And I mean, now sitting here today, like with the title art director, like the title doesn't mean anything, but the fact that I get paid to do this, like
Mhm.
just blows my mind. Blows
So
my
in
mind.
college, what was your degree in college then?
So yeah, I majored in fine arts and minored in marketing, which the minor in
Oh,
marketing, great. I sit on the marketing team
perfect.
now. But the fine arts major, I mean, I think for a while my plan was like maybe I'll paint pictures of Jesus. I don't really know.
Hey,
So
that's a thing.
it is, but you have to be like top 1%,
Right.
right, to be successful. Yeah.
I know. I watch all on the internet people painting Jesus with sticks, and I'm like, wow, they're
Yeah,
doing it.
they are
They have a
doing it.
fine arts degree and they're crushing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, with just becoming an art director and
Hmm.
how it's so crazy, almost like it, even the fact that faith plays into those desires that you have is wild to me. I think mainly because a lot of people statistically would say that that is crazy that you came to find faith as a teenager at like a super pivotal point as a
Yeah,
teenager, too. I mean, that is like usually where people grow up in a faith-based community, and then it's terrible, but statistically, we find that a lot of
yeah,
people fall off from that at that time. And
yeah,
the opposite is true with you, where you're like, no, that's where I like kind of got on board
yeah.
with everything. And so how do you feel? Well, I want to kind of lean in a little bit to the creativity and culture for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of talk about your perspective in that, because what people don't know about you, they will know after they hopefully listen to this and go digging a little. But you are very gifted in the way you carry focused on faith in the Lord, are able to keep relevancy in culture. And I think that you
Yeah,
marry those two extremely well. And I don't know that everyone is gifted in that way. I do know that not everyone is not everybody is gifted in that way. Um, and so with that being said, you have to pay attention, I feel like, to culture, the realm of creativity, in order to keep that balance at the
yeah.
helm for people to even listen, you know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm really curious about your thoughts with that.
Yeah, this is something I'm really passionate about. I think that like historically we look back and the church was like where the rest of culture in the world looked to for like what are they doing within the arts. Um, and I think we've fallen away from that a little bit. But I'm very passionate about the church should be setting like what the standard of what good art looks like, right?
Well, and I'm going to pause
And
you. What did
so,
they, like you say, it started with the
mhm,
church? A lot of people may not necessarily know that, because I think that that is not something that people know.
No.
So I want you to put a pin in that real quick. Like why do you say that? And how did culture look to the church for creativity and the arts?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the main one I think about is like the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Stunning. And they knew like we need the most beautiful art within here because people come in here and encounter the presence of God. And
Mm-hmm.
so why would we put our best art anywhere else other than God's house, right? And so, you have artists in there creating and people start turning like what's happening in there. And
Mm-hmm.
when you walk into spaces like that and you experience beauty in multiple ways, right? Like first and foremost, if you're encountering God and you're talking about creation, and like we even like looking in Genesis, like what God talks about creativity and the way He chooses to create and how He chooses to talk about it, even speaks to the character of God, I think immensely. And then to be in that space and also like look up and see art that is then not only reminding you of like the creative God, but almost like it's really hard to put this to words, but I think art sometimes sits in a gap of a space that if heaven is up here, right, and earth is down here, I think art has a really unique ability to fill this gap in a way that sometimes words or conversations or let's see, words, conversations, or really anything else could. And it's just this feeling within your soul that is kind of like reaching towards an almost but not yet of like the
Mm-hmm.
art we're going to experience in heaven. I don't think I answered your question, but
That's great. No, and I
okay.
think what I loved about what you said, because that would literally like music would fall within the realm of that. I
Yep.
feel that, you know what I mean? Like art
Yep.
itself would fall,
Yeah.
any creative outlet would fall into that. I love that. So
Yeah.
continue with culture pointed to
Yes.
the church first, then what do you feel is happening?
Yeah. I think that I've just noticed too, like we live in Nashville, but really this applies for everywhere. But even specifically in Nashville, there are so many talented people. There is
Mm-hmm.
good art everywhere, honestly. And so I'm really passionate about reminding people, like showing the difference between good art that maybe is self glorifying, self satisfying, and good art that points us to something greater than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that honestly, when we're creating as Christians, we almost have like a superpower in our back pocket because we're creating with and for God, which I'm also really passionate about with and for, not just for. Because if we're creating just for God, but we're not inviting Him into the creative process, like, why would you
Mm-hmm.
do that? That's like having the most incredible designer sitting on your team and being like, I'm not going to use her though. Like, what? Why would you not tap into that? That's crazy. And I think it's also really important to kind of what you mentioned earlier about paying attention to culture. I think it's also really risky or really easy, honestly, to fall into a category of creating art only for people who are currently Christians, at least within the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, kind of the approach I try to take to anything we create, and I really mean anything, like it could be an Instagram story, it could be a short film, a
Mm-hmm.
video, photo shoot, that for Christians, the art reminds them and kind of pushes them and nudges them in a relationship with God that's further than they're currently experiencing, right? So maybe
Mm-hmm.
seeing like a new side of God. Like God has so many different sides and character traits and dimensions to him. Like I think we could go our entire life trying to see all of them and we still won't be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody who's maybe been going to church their entire life, like 50 years, and comes and sees a video that they feel something that they're like, I've never experienced this part of God before. And then that furthers a relationship. So that is my goal with Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Simultaneously, it has to also speak to culture where it's intriguing to them, right? So it's like, why is that so good? Like, what is that within me that sees this and feels a certain type of way and is interested? And I listen to these other songs and they're good songs, but this song is like doing something to my soul. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a hard balance to balance, but it's also like such an honor to get to walk that line of like thinking about Christians, thinking about non-Christians. And at the end of the day, both of them, I just want to experience Jesus through creativity, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Gosh,
Yeah.
you are passionate about this.
Yeah,
That's so
I
good.
love it.
Well, I want to reference you and I both are kind of obsessed. And you mentioned someone named Finn. He's read this as well, right? This is a book called The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And I
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it's not like a start and read all the way through kind of a book. It literally is, I have to process one small bit of this book, I feel like, at a time.
When I read it, I kind of did it almost like as a devotional, like a
Yeah.
little bit, and then like journal and think about it. Yeah.
Yes. Because I
Yeah.
have to think. One thing stuck out to me, though, in relation to what we were talking about. It says, no matter what tools you use to create, the true instrument is you. And through you, the universe that surrounds us all comes into focus. Now, I think with our point of view that we have, I just want to talk about that just as in someone like a creative. I feel
Mhm.
like when I say that word, like my brain immediately is like Portland, Oregon. You know what I mean? Or like Austin, like
That's funny.
the creatives, you know what I mean? But I feel like creative is such a broad and beautiful term that can translate to an architect, to a
Yeah.
musician, to a painter, to a sculpture, like anything that you're looking at,
Hmm.
something that has been created, right?
Hmm.
This something that is being created. But when it referenced that it speaks to you, it makes me wonder, just as someone who creates, is there a point in which you have to almost like fully surrender that creativity just to ensure that, because this is something that you have physically created for other people to experience? And is that something that has to be kept? This is a kind of a vulnerable question, but
Yeah.
something that has to be put in check because it is something that is from us with our name on it, because that can
Yes.
turn pretty quickly. So I want to kind of
Yeah.
talk about your perspective with that.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that when I first started as a designer here, fresh out of college, I struggled with this a lot of one, just like needing constant affirmation from people. And just if somebody like complimented me on something that we did, fully absorb that as like I did it.
Mm,
And I think looking back, I think a lot of that came from some of the classes I took in college. It's, you have, what do they call it? Critique a lot,
mm,
like critique days. And you basically
mm,
have to like defend yourself, and then people will question you and you defend yourself, and people will question you and you defend yourself. And so you almost form this like protective layer over anything you create of like,
mm,
well, I did it because this, and this is why it's good. And I'm good because it's good. And so it took me a long time to kind of break all of that down. We talked about Finn. He's been like a huge help in helping me realize like your value is not in your work, your value is in who you are. And what an
mm,
honor that God has seen who you are as enough to call you to do what you do.
mm.
Um,
Sheesh,
but
that'll translate to everything.
yeah, um, I think something that I kind of a way to kind of get around this now is I make sure I start anything that I'm creating in prayer and just asking God, like, I want your presence in this, whatever you want to say in this, whatever you want to do. Sometimes we'll put something out there and I'm like, felt like it wasn't even our best work. And then we'll hear a story of somebody who's like, for me, this connected to this, that reminded me of this, and now I'm getting baptized. Like just where I'm like, what? And it's like, it
Mm,
doesn't matter if I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world because it's not about me, right?
mm,
And so starting in prayer, it's like then if there are, honestly, on both sides, if there are critiques, I don't have to take the weight of that. I mean, obviously, we want to grow and get better and feedback and all of that. But if there are critiques or people don't like it or there's, bad evaluation of it, I don't
mm,
have to carry that burden as that is me. And at the same time, if there is praise and people love it and are like, this is amazing, then I could be like, yeah, glory to God. Like I
mm,
asked him to do it and he did it. And so I'm trying to sit within that. And I'm definitely not perfect at that. Sometimes somebody would be like, that was awesome. And I'm like, it was kind of awesome, wasn't it?
Right?
I liked it too. So I think it's a constant act of just surrendering your talents and gifts, surrendering your talents and gifts. And I mean, I fully believe that the only reason why I have them is to use them to show people Jesus. That's it. And so that's all I want to do with it. I'm like truly just a vessel, but it has taken a long time for me to get to that point, and like pain and learning and all of that throughout. But I'm at a really fun place with it right now where I don't spend a lot of my time stressed about it or worried about opinions and thoughts. I just think it's really cool that God's trusting me to create with and for him. Brings me so much joy.
So awesome. Same.
Yeah, girl.
What do you think, just as we kind of like wrap everything up, just kind of talking about something that you are learning right now in the season that you're in, because you said it's really fun and it's great and you're receiving joy, and that has to be, there's got to be something that you're learning in that, or whether it's something you're reading or just something that you're learning on your own. Like, what is something that you're learning that could be beneficial for others that create? Or honestly, like, I don't think that there's a conversation for just people that create. I think we all create something and have gifts in general. And so I would love to know what you're learning right now.
Yeah. First thing to say is you're right. I don't think this is like just for a conversation for a creative team or for somebody who labels themselves as a creator. We're all called to be image bearers.
Mm.
What is God? Like the ultimate creator of the universe. And so whether you're creating a cool outfit or you're creating with
You're
unique
very good at that
words,
too. Everyone needs to know.
thank you.
Who,
Thank
me?
you. Thank you. What? Um, or whether you're creating with your words and you're able to have beautiful, vulnerable conversations with people, or whether you're creating environments or experiences for people, like all of that is creating. I think sometimes we think, like the arts specifically of like music, dance, uh, painting, like that's creating. And that is one type of, but it's definitely not all of it. So we all can participate in like the book or the book I'm reading a book right now called The Creative Act. And so we can all participate within that creative act. Now, can you remind me of what the actual question was? Because I just needed to say that.
What are you learning?
Oh, what am I learning?
Yeah.
Gosh, so much. I think one thing I'm really learning in this season is patience.
It's the
I think it's,
worst. I mean,
I
it's good. It's
know, I
good.
know,
It's the
but
worst.
it's not, yeah.
It's the
It's good
worst.
after the fact when you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I've grown. Now I'm patient. Building up patience, not fun. Not fun.
For the birds.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's hard when basically get paid for having ideas, right? Because basically my whole job is giving vision and direction for things.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I will come into work or just like outside of work too. Like I create everywhere. I just so happen to get paid to do it here. But
Mm-hmm.
even if I didn't get paid to do it, I would be creating everywhere. Like it's just who
Mm-hmm.
I am. It's what fulfills me, all that. But sometimes it's hard to walk into work and be like, I don't have an idea. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm learning within that just patience, like with myself, with my team, with God, even. Like, I'm like, hey, maybe I actually need to spend more time in prayer about this. Maybe I need to talk to other people about this.
Hmm.
So patience is definitely one. And I think I'm pretty young to be in a role like this, which is amazing. And what comes with that is like a massive level of imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And so I think I'm learning to know that when I arrive at a table that I was invited to,
Mm-hmm.
that there is a seat there for me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like trying to pull a chair up to squeeze my way in. Like there already is a seat there reserved for me. And that I think goes back to just trusting that God has called me to do this. And it's not about who I am, it's about who he is and how he wants to use me. And when I can
Mm-hmm.
look through that lens, then the imposter syndrome falls away. I'm like, the only qualification for doing this position or being in this role, or even just for anybody, like the only qualification for doing something God's called you to do is that God called you to do it. Like God is above a resume, above experience, like any of that.
Yes.
And so that's something that I'm constantly, daily basis, trying to lay down and then be okay with. But yeah, being the youngest kind of everywhere, I'm just like, I promise I'm not a baby. I'm just trying to, yeah, I guess learn how to surrender all of that. And then the last thing is I also just think I'm in a really fun season of really figuring out like who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 25, which is, God bless, my frontal cortex is fully developed now.
Let's go.
Yeah.
What are you
Praise
doing?
God. And so I think my life has changed drastically in the past year and a half to 2.5 years. Drastically. Like I don't even recognize the person I was back then. And not that she was bad by any means, but just so different. And so I'm having, that's Rob Santel, our chief of staff. And so yeah, I just think I'm having like a really fun time figuring out like what else am I passionate about also that is
Right.
creative, but it's not my work, right? To help have some sort of a work-life balance and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
also
is
just
the
figuring
hardest
out,
with the season you're in right now,
yeah.
because there's no reason to not
And it
fight for
doesn't turn
that.
off. Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't turn off. I'll even like I've had to be like give myself clear boundaries lately of like if I come home from work and I'm going on a walk, I'm not scrolling Pinterest, saving ideas to different boards while I'm doing it. Because in my mind, I'm like, why? I love this. This is fun. This isn't work. But my creative side of my brain will not rest unless I
Mm-hmm.
force it to.
Like,
And
look at the
sometimes,
trees, look at the trees, look at the
yeah, yeah,
trees.
yeah, 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 yeah. Just close your eyes, close your eyes. And yeah, and that's a struggle, but I try to remind myself, I'm like, by doing this and setting these boundaries now, you are looking out for your future self because
Mm-hmm.
burnout is a real thing. You know, people will not realize how fast they're running until they trip
Mm-hmm.
and fall over. And then they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I just smacked into a wall that I didn't even know I was running towards.
Right.
And yeah, so having those boundaries in place is something that I'm also learning. Like you said, being in the season of my life, like single, I live alone. Have my dog, she's the best. But I could come home and work until, 10 or 11 and nobody would know. Having those boundaries and accountability and forcing myself to do other things in other areas that are creative and also just good for me, like going to the gym and hanging out with friends, going to my small group. So just having a really fun time, like figuring out how to balance all of that. But it's honestly been really fun. I'm just in such a fun season right now. I wish I
Well,
could just like pause time for a moment and like stay here for a few years
mm-hmm.
because it's been so much fun.
Write
A
it all
blast.
down.
Oh, I've been journaling. I'm like,
Like,
I want to
write
look
it
back at these
all down.
stages. Yeah. Yeah.
Such a cool season. Honestly, I've taken
Mm-hmm.
so many nuggets from you today that I'm gonna keep.
We'll
Um,
text. We'll text about it.
we'll text. I got a lot more. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to hang today.
Thank
If
you.
people, I want other people to experience a lot of the things that that you're doing and creating, and I love. And I say this like out of a place of yes, you literally are open handed to using those things in beautiful ways, and so I know that. But I still want people to see a lot of what you've created and done, and so how can people do that?
Instagram. I have an art Instagram account where I've tried to just kind of like post the process for anything we create. One, to
Mm-hmm.
just kind of pull the curtain back and show people like how we do it, what we're doing. If you're curious, this is how. And just to be like vulnerable in the process as well. And so I post a ton of process type stuff. And my art Instagram account is Ashley Ann Arts. So I
Perfect.
post a ton on there. And yeah, I don't know, DM me. I love to talk about this type of stuff. So I'll get coffee with anybody. I'll text you about
She
it. We can hang
loves some
out.
coffee and
I
matcha.
love a coffee. Yeah. Anywhere with a
Okay,
good
well,
matcha.
I literally have so many thoughts even following up, so I'm probably going to need a coffee slash matcha soon.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
all right, well, have a wonderful day.
You too.
And
You're the
thank you so
best.
much. Same.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
all that you do.
Okay. Bye.